Goal: reopen KHA'ZIX solo lane, primarily mid lane, as a supported, semi-viable pick. So first of all, number one, I am going to take issue with the goal here, and I have a single question as to single question here to ask, which is why? Why do you think that KHA'ZIX mid is good for the game? Now, I'm not saying it's bad, right? But the question that I have to ask here is like, what about KHA'ZIX mid in particular is a positive, right? Are we saying KHA'ZIX mid is going to add a new dimension to AD Assassins in mid lane? Are we doing this because it's a legacy pick that we think that people would be really excited about? Do we think that the laning pattern of KHA'ZIX mid is particularly exciting? Like, basically, I think there's, like, this goal is insufficient for me because without further information as to why we're doing this, I think it becomes hard to determine how we should do it, right? Because the motivation behind why we are making KHA'ZIX mid changes the way that we want to do things, right? As an example, if you're arguing that you think that KHA'ZIX mid has a really compelling gameplay pattern, and then you say, make his W apply his passive again, I'm going to tell you, well, I don't think the gameplay is very compelling. Conversely, if you tell me we're making KHA'ZIX a mid laner because people really liked this in the past, and it's a legacy thing and it's nostalgia bait, then I'm going to say, okay, well, W applying passive is what he used to do, and that's how he used to be good mid, and so that might be a good way of accomplishing that goal. Whereas if you're trying to say that the gameplay is really good, then doing the W passive thing is like, I would argue there's probably better ways of approaching that if you think that the gameplay is supposed to be the main draw here. So number one initial complaint is I think the goal is insufficient. It's not clear to me how we're supposed to go about this because this isn't a particularly good goal in my opinion. Change step 1, 1v1 non-ambush interaction adjustments consistency. Passive is uncancelable. This might be fine. I will note that I do think that uncancelable auto attack windups are kind of similar to some other things like enhanced melee attack range. Like not enhanced melee attack range like Jack's W, enhanced melee attack range like 175, 200, 225, etc. type attack range. And other things in the game where the more and more of them we add to the game, the less special they are. And these do generally feel pretty good, but there are some other there are some costs to doing things like these. Like it is just raw power for sure because the passive windup is uncancelable. So this is power, might be good. Honestly, I could see a version of KHA'ZIX where your passive auto attack being uncancelable is good. I will note, however, that is pretty common. Like the fact that this would mean that during your ult you get 3 uncancelable auto attacks, or potentially 4 if you have your ult evolve. It's a little scary. That's a lot of uncancelable auto attacks, right? We generally don't let people use a lot of auto attacks uncancelably close together because there are some constraints there. Q uncancelable windup. This is a misunderstanding of how spells work. Spells can't have uncancelable windups. We could do a different thing, which is Q gives vision of the target during the cast time, so you can't lose it. Like Q gives true vision. That's what Garen R does, so that it's not cancelable. TLDR, this is not something that is... This is incompatible. It can't have an uncancelable windup because it's not an attack, it's a spell. Anyway. Isolation, lesser pets, turrets, I assume this means don't apply. So, my read on this is like, we can make his Q so that it effectively can't be canceled in most circumstances. We can make his passive uncancelable. I don't actually think this really changes anything for lane KHA'ZIX, right? This to me just reads as, yep, KHA'ZIX is just a stronger champion. He's just better. He might feel better because of uncancelable windup on passive and Q, right? Those things probably feel better, right? I've certainly played KHA'ZIX where my Q gets canceled. Oh, let me undo that. I'm not looking at this and seeing anything that really compels me to think that this is particularly good for mid lane. This just seems like KHA'ZIX is different and he's better. What would KHA'ZIX need to give up for this? Something. Like maybe there's a version of this that's better. But not really seeing anything particularly mid lane for this. Because, sure, mid lane KHA'ZIX needs to interact with Malzahar, but like jungle KHA'ZIX also does that. So I'm not really seeing anything particularly compelling for lane KHA'ZIX here. Alright. Reworked uptime on passive. 8-second per target cooldown. Instantly resets if vision of KHA'ZIX is lost. It's kind of interesting. It's a little different than the current version, but it's interesting. I think it's a cool concept. Minion interaction. Could feasibly be allowed use on minions and monsters. Okay, so sure. always benefits from isolation when cast on minions. Half of cooldown and mana costs are refunded on minion kill. This, by the way, like the refund on minion kill, this is the kind of thing that I would expect for lane KHA'ZIX to be functional. Yeah, not too much to say about that, but yeah, this is the kind of thing I would expect if we were doing lane KHA'ZIX. Always benefiting from isolation when cast on minions is kind of scary. That's a lot of power. Like KHA'ZIX would just be like spamming Q on minions pretty easily, especially if you go tier or something like that. Maybe that's fine. It's an interesting concept. I will say the passive being a per target cooldown, I think there's a lot of implications here. It encourages KHA'ZIX to play differently, right? Play more like a, hey, I want to, sundered. I want to play like a Sundered Sky Fighter where I'm like hit, and then you would like ult or whatever, right? And then go hit, multiple different people, like even hit. I think there's a lot of different incentives on this that are kind of interesting. I'm not sure it's good for KHA'ZIX if he's heavily incentivized to hit multiple different targets, because fundamentally at the end of the day, we're asking KHA'ZIX to be an assassin. I think giving him a lot of payout for hitting multiple different targets in quick succession is a little odd to me. It's not necessarily saying it's bad, but it's a little odd. This is the kind of thing where it's interesting to me. I would love to see what this looks like in a test, but I am suspicious of it, is what I'll say, because I think giving KHA'ZIX a lot of incentive to switch targets is, number one, probably not the kind of power that KHA'ZIX players actually want, and number two, probably not what the pattern of the champion actually is most interested in. So ultimately, I'm a little skeptical of this, but it's interesting. It's an interesting concept for sure. Then let's look at number 3. On minion kill, get 25% of W's current heal power. Okay, sure. I mean, that's powerful. Slightly incentivizes W max, sure. Benefits lane Ka, sure. And then the W heal. Oh, hold on. So I will say, we've tried some of these sustain things for lane. They tend to be effective, but they tend to not be that fun. So as an example, like from recent patch, is Lane Viego now has full healing against minions currently. Actually, I'm going to be playing that. Maybe at some point I'll actually play a game of League on stream. Could be crazy, right? If I would did that. I think these types of lane power tend to not be the most satisfying way to make people into laners. They do work though, right? I mean, look at Lane Viego, right? It's like 48 mid or something like that now. It's a pretty real buff. It tends to not be the most satisfying way to make people into laners. Of like just giving them effectively a lot of a lot of health regen if they're a laner, so they're like less pokeable. It probably, like, there's probably some version of this kind of thing that works, but I'm not sure that it's necessarily the best way to encourage lane KHA'ZIX. So ultimately, yeah, and kind of what Nakusha's saying here also is like, I personally don't really love when abilities scale with other abilities, like ranks and stuff like that. I think it can be cool given the right kit, but I'm not really confident that this is the right place for this to be. Like, I think this is very weird, for example, that like Ryze's ult rank affects his Q, like his QE damage amp, right, or his EQ damage amp. It's like I think it's very weird. I think it works for Ryze specifically, especially because it can call it out specifically in the ult passive tooltip. But I don't, I really don't love these kinds of mechanics unless they're strictly like necessary for the champion to function well, which I think for Ryze it is. Yeah, I think overall this would, like, there's probably some tuning of this that would be effective, but I don't love it. It's like, if we really desperately wanted KHA'ZIX mid for some reason, it probably, like, something like this probably works. Let's look at number 4. R evolve, bonus magic damage from passive is converted to true damage. This just sounds cool, to be honest, but I'm not really, I like, to me this doesn't really read as like a mid lane or lane focus change at all. This just kind of reads as like, it's just a cool thing for KHA'ZIX, honestly. Ultimately, kind of my summary of my thoughts on this are, there's a lot of things in here that don't really read as lane focused at all to me, number 1. Number 2, I think the goals need to be better, like more fleshed out of like, why are we making KHA'ZIX a mid laner? Because without motivation of like understanding why you think that KHA'ZIX mid is good, it's hard to determine like, is this a good way of approaching it? Number 3, some of these things will work, but maybe won't work in a way that's particularly satisfying or interesting for the KHA'ZIX player. Like particularly the minion healing stuff is like, yes, it probably could work, right? Or like, making the W heal more powerful, but making it not scale with rank ups. Like, yes, that is all fair, right? Ultimately, I would say this pitch is like, there's some cool stuff here for sure. Like I think particularly there's some cool ideas of like, yeah, like are making your passive true damage or partially true damage. Like that's very cool. But I think there's a lot of things here that I'm kind of looking at that I'm like, I'm missing, like I'm not seeing the connection between the goal, which I think is the goal is weak, and the actual like outputs here.